Welcome to Caleb's Basketball Pod. Sorry for the long hiatus, little break. Try and get things together. Try and make sure I have something to talk about to give you guys good content. We're going to continue our team preview. Before we do that, I just want to jump into this Kawhi Leonard Los Angeles Clippers situation. So we hear a lot about this. We hear like Kawhi Leonard is an ambassador, he doesn't have to show up, and he gets paid from this tree company or whatever for the Clippers, and that's what's being investigated, and it's saying that he's got like $29 million from this to no show. It's a no show pay, so he does have to show up, and he still gets paid. And it's being said that, well, it's illegal because of salary issues in the NBA, and it's an endorsement, but it's a team endorsement, so it's getting him more money as if he's getting another contract, but it's off the books. So I completely get this, that it's illegal. I do think it's unfortunate, but I believe it probably happens a lot. And I don't think Kawhi's the only one. I don't necessarily know if Kawhi knows. I don't think these players, I think a lot of them look into these contracts. I don't necessarily think Kawhi knows that, hey, his uncle, because that's who seems to negotiated this deal, got this clause in there. But maybe he does know because of the fact that he did return to the Raptors. And a lot of people say he did return to the Raptors because their demand was that they got some no-show endorsement in Toronto that would pay up to $15 million, and Toronto did not do that, and they turned that down. So at that same time, maybe Kawhi did know. I mean, who's really to say on that? But it's just interesting in the fact of he's been there for a few years now, like 3 or 4 seasons, and we're just talking about this now, and apparently it's been going on this whole time. So it's very interesting that at this point, this comes out, and then I want to say maybe a week and a half after this comes out, we hear that the Clippers do not plan to build their team around Kawhi anymore, which I get because of a lot of injury history, but at this point, the Clippers are playing with a really old squad. We'll get to that when we talk about the Clippers team preview. They're playing with an older group, a group of vets. The timeline for them to win a championship is really closing. So yeah, maybe it is time you start the rebuild, but if you start the rebuild, you're going to have to get rid of these vets. You have like Kawhi Leonard, James Harden, you just signed Chris Paul. You got Brook Lopez, you signed him in the offseason. A lot of guys like that, a lot of vets on that team. So it's interesting to see where this lands for them. But I don't believe, like people saying, if this ends up being true, that they're going to forfeit all this stuff. I think they'll lose some draft picks. I think they'll pay a heavy fine. I don't think they're going to go back and try to take this trade away because it's way too far into happening and happened to be like this trade never happened and to make this trade go all the way back and send Kawhi back to or it'd be send, which doesn't make sense, but it'd be send Paul George back to so-and-so and back to OKC and this stuff, and that's not going to happen. So that's been a report out there way too deep in, and you aren't punishing OKC by making them lose their best player, former MVP, former finals MVP, by giving him back to the Clippers. That's not going to happen. You do not win. You do not lose in that situation. If you're the Clippers, you would somehow win. And that's not what's going to happen. I see a heavy fine and a forfeit of some draft picks. But the only problem with that is draft picks are not really in the clip. They don't have many first-round draft picks coming up. So that will be further down the line. So it'll be interesting to see what the outcome of that is. But if it's a forfeit of draft picks, it may even be a suspension to Kawhi Leonard because despite the fact he may or may not know, it was negotiated for him. So he may see like maybe 25, 30 game suspension for Kawhi Leonard. And that would be disappointing if you're the Clippers, but I think there's going to be some way where this is resolved without throwing players back on their old teams and stuff like that. I don't see that happening. One more thing to touch on real quick. We saw Tyler Hero got foot surgery, and he will miss the beginning of the season for the Miami Heat. That puts the Heat in a very interesting situation. I think we've been trying to see if there's any possible way they can compete. And to be honest, with this roster, I don't see them really competing for a top spot in the East. But now without Tyler Hero, I think that window gets smaller. I think it means you need a lot more from Norman Powell. So we'll see where that goes. But Miami's not in a great situation right now. In salary cap rise and future, they're not even really necessarily building for their future at this point, which is unfortunate for them. Let's jump into our team preview. Today we're going to do two teams. We are going to do the Brooklyn Nets and the Charlotte Hornets. We start with the Brooklyn Nets. Let's throw out some names on their roster. We have Tyrese Martin, Tyson E.N.T., E.J. Liddell, Terrence Mann, Michael Porter Jr., Dajuan Sharp, Noah Clowney, Jalen Wilson, Cam Thomas, of course, Nick Claxton, Drew Time, Kobe Borthwick, Yuri Collins, Haywood Highsmith, Drake Powell, Danny Wolf, Zaire Williams. A lot of people on this roster for sure. Young talent. I don't think it's talented enough to really win any meaningful games. And I'm not trying to be a downer. I do think there's talent on this team. I think every once in a while you'll get a 50, 60 possible point game from Cam Thomas. That's possible. Dude's a bucket. Do I think it will help really much? Not really. You may shock some teams with it, but it's not a winning formula. And as good as Cam Thomas is, his scoring 40 or 50 has not proven that wins even Brooklyn some games. So even with him scoring that many points, it's not saying when he gets into this lights out bucket mode, kind of seems like everyone else around him, including teammates, are not there. And it seems like it's just him, and he's just playing at the park. And at that point, you're 1-on-5, and other guys on the floor lose wanting to really be out there because you're not going to touch the ball anyway. We've seen him shoot. And it's not like he's not making the shots, but we've seen him shoot over 3 men and make it. He's making it. But it's easy to win 1-on-5 when no one else cares on the offensive end because they're not touching the ball. They're just jogging up and down the court. So I think that's a little bit of a problem. I think they're too young to really have a chance to do anything in the East. There's not that superstar caliber player that says, if he's on my team, I win. I'll be interested to see what Michael Porter Jr. does as a top guy on a team. I am interested in that, but I still don't see him winning many games. Their projected win total is set at 21.5. I do not see Brooklyn winning a lot of games. I'm actually going to go under. I'm going to say 19 or 20 wins. I do like the fight. I think the coach brings a ton, and I mean a ton of fight to this squad. And he does every year. He has them, and he tries different defenses and this and that. I just don't think there's enough talent to really win and win any meaningful games. You may win some throwaway games. You may get some good teams on a back-to-back. We know there's a lot of back-to-backs. You may get Philly. Who knows? You may have Philly on a back-to-back where Joel Embiid and maybe Paul George don't play, and you may pick up a win there. But I just think there's too many really, really good teams for them to really be all that competitive. So I'm going under. I'm going 19 or 20 wins on the season for Brooklyn. Next up, we have the Charlotte Hornets. Charlotte Hornets, interesting roster here. LaMelo Ball, Miles Bridges, Grant Williams, Nick Smith Jr., Colin Sexton now is added, Josh Green, Antonio Reeves, Drew Peterson, Pat Connaughton, Mason Plumlee, Trey Mann, Brandon Miller, KJ Simpson, Spencer Dinwiddie, Seth Curry, Taj Gibson. Don't know if you guys are seeing what I'm seeing when I'm naming off this roster. We have a ton of guards on this team. I mean, point guard wise, let's just look over again. Point guard wise, guys that are exactly point guards. LaMelo Ball, Nick Smith, Colin Sexton, Pat Connaughton's kind of like a combo guard, Trey Mann, Spencer Dinwiddie, Seth Curry, all point guards. That's like 5 point guards on your roster. Not a lot of these guys can do both, and that's the unfortunate thing for Charlotte. Is it's not necessarily that they can play both positions. So you're going to have a very guard-heavy rotation. I personally am not big on that. I think you do need size, especially when you go against guys like Jokic. If you have Embiid healthy for a season, you're going to be playing a lot of these dominant bigs. And there's nobody on that Charlotte Hornets roster that can even really go out there and defend those guys. You even got rid of Mark Williams. I believe you traded him to Phoenix. And he was your big. And now he's not there. You got rid of Nick Richardson a couple years ago. I think you traded him to Phoenix too. And now he's not there. You have no one to combat those guys. Mason Plumlee's not it. I do like the guards though. I like LaMelo Ball. I think he's really good. I don't think he makes a difference in winning games. But he's really good and he's entertaining to watch. I'm interested to see when Brandon Miller's healthy how good this guy can be, because we know he's going to be a future star in the league. The talent's there, the shot making, the clutch, the ability to hit big shots. We know that's there. But the problem is going to be, are they there in those late game stretches? I don't see them doing any damage in the East. I don't even see them competing really for a play-in. But I do think they win more games this year than last if they stay healthy. And we do have some more veterans on the team, but I want to see, like, how does the bench work? That's looking like it's going to be possibly Colin Sexton and Spencer Dinwiddie. These are 2 6-man of the year candidate point guards on the same roster. So how does it look when they're both coming in off the bench, more than likely to back up LaMelo? And we know LaMelo missed a lot of time last year, and that may be why you have the help. And you have so many guards, but when all healthy, how does this rotation fit? That's why I'm a little skeptical on. But we see the win totals at 26 games. I'm going to say more wins than last season, so I'm going to go over. I'm going to say maybe around the 32, 33 area for wins for the Charlotte Hornets. So I do think an upgrade. I think mid-season they're going to have to look at trading away some of these point guards. And you want to build some veteran wings, some veteran bigs, and try to just... That's your only way to possibly make a shot at the play-in, is by building some more vets and some veteran bigs, wings, guys like that. And then from there, you win a few games, you get close to that play-in, and maybe stars are like... hey, we want to play, we want to be on this team. So we go from there and we see that, and we focus on winning, finding a way to get in that play-in, and then from there, guys, bigger stars want to join. They want to play with Brandon Miller, with LaMelo Ball, and then maybe you start creating a contender from that. But you have to start with trading some of these younger guards, getting some veteran wings and bigs, and becoming a play-in team first. That's where you have to start. Right now, it's not a great future because you aren't building for the future. You're building too many, in my opinion, of one position, too many of guys that do the same thing, and too many of guys that just, unfortunately, don't make a difference on winning. And that's sad to say, but it's just what we've seen, because LaMelo Ball is one of the most talented, one of the most entertaining guys to watch in the league, but he doesn't make a difference on winning or losing. I'm not winning or losing games on LaMelo because half the time I'm not in these games. So he's not making everyone else around him better. Maybe he's putting on a show, but that's it. And at the end of the day, when you see Charlotte, you just see a show and you don't see any real basketball or any real chance of winning, and it's sad and unfortunate. But that's it just happens to be where they're at. And to get out of that, you don't want to be mid. We've seen that for Chicago Bulls a lot. They're mid. They're not really good. They're not really bad. So they don't even get a good draft pick. Right now, that's what Charlotte's almost fallen into. So We need to get out that pick away, go either maybe trade off LaMelo, rebuild, or maybe just, like I said, trade some of these younger guards, get some bigger wings, some vet bigs, and try to make a play-in spot and build an atmosphere where it's not a joke. And people want to join in. They want to say, hey, if I go play with LaMelo and Brandon Miller, I could eventually one day win a championship. They don't have that right now if you're Charlotte. So it's just unfortunately where they're at. And it'll be interesting to see how they've been doing things different. So it'll be interesting, and I hope they keep going up the ladder. But you're going to get to a point where you just stay on the same spot. And at that point, you have to move. Change ladders one way or another. But that's all I have for this preview. I want to thank you guys for joining. Again, sorry it took so long. Try and get caught up, get some things done. But we're back at you. We're coming back to you. And we're going to try to keep these things going. Thank you guys for watching.